I've drunk his health in 100 bars, from Beetlejuice to the sands of Mars, and I'll drink his health again if you'll just buy. I knew Stan Long for 20 years, that's less than 100,000 beers. I'll tell you his sad story if you promise not to cry. Stan Long, he was a man, he was a mighty drinking man, but drinking wasn't really his forte. He loved 100 girls on a dozen different worlds, and he loved them in a most peculiar way. I first met Stan on the white-hot sands of Perrin's world, where murderous bands of aliens tried to kill us all with blaster, sword, and shield. Fought back-to-back for 7 days, fought steel with steel and rays with rays, till the core came in. I had to breathe in there. Till the core came in on the 7th day and made the aliens yield. Now, Perrin's world is a terrible place where they put all the dregs of the human race, but it's a place where you can get yourself a girl or a boy or a drink. So Stan and I retired that day to a cool dark dive on the side of a bay of sulphurous water colored one unnatural shade of pink. We sat down to drink some beer, drank all of it, and then I fear drank all the wine and rum and scotch and gin, tequila too. The world was in an awful whirl when I said, Stan, I need a girl. Stan poured a glass of cream to mint and said, well, I'll take 2. Stan Long, he was a man, he was a mighty fighting man, but fighting wasn't really his forte. He loved 100 girls on a dozen different worlds, and he loved them in a most peculiar way. I looked at him in wild surmise, tried to focus bleary eyes, and told him, Stanley, stop a minute, think of where we are. Those girls are built like sides of beef, all muscle, bone, and claws and teeth. When they get through with you, there'll be some moaning at the bar. Well, Stan just laughed and drank some green and told me, Joe, you think you've seen about all there is to see in terms of sexual relations. But I'll take me these Perrin chicks, take them and I'll get my kicks, and they'll pay me for my peregrinations. I shook my head and watched him go and got myself a gal named Mo, who seemed the gentlest woman of that not too gentle lot. But her biceps were the size of either of my thighs, and the strongest muscles on her, those were not. That's the R-rated version. Not. Spent a day or two in traction, then went back to get some action, because I'd heard a tank ship land with beer and booze. I went back to that sleazy dive, didn't expect to see Stan alive. To shack up with 2 Perrin dames is not the death I'd choose. It's getting late to read these funny words. I limped into that sad cafe, feeling guilty, sad to say, for letting poor old Stanley take those 2 girls off to die. But there he was in the middle of the floor, surrounded by those He-Man whores who gazed at him with love light in their roomy, bloodshot eyes. Stan Long, he was a man, he was a mighty fighting man, but fighting wasn't really his forte. He loved 100 girls on a dozen different worlds, and he loved them in a most peculiar way. Stan, I said, I know you're tough. We've fought and bled and killed enough together now that you won't mind if I express my thought. The least of this unholy crew put me in bed, in traction too. I just can't help but wonder what you have that I ain't got. It's really easy to explain, said Stan, who felt no whit of pain. But wait and let me tell you when I think the time is right. Reactions from my fellow men when I explain what makes me win leads some to laugh and some to cry, and some it leads to fight. You might belong to the latter bunch, although you don't, I have a hunch. So just in case, I'd like a chance to even up our scores. I've been drinking heavily since after midnight, 2 or 3. You owe me 20 beers, drink up, don't pay, it's on the whores. The girls, they brought me 20 beers and favored me with lurid leers. As soon as I would gulp one down, they put one in my fist. By the 17th or 18th, I was slightly higher than the sky, but knew that sooner or late, I'd have to go and take a piss. See, spacermen have a, this is a coda, spacermen have a tradition that no matter your condition, the first poor boy to leave the bar's the one who pays the round. But though the whores were buying it, tradition is tradition. Shit, I'd cross my teeth and grit my legs and never give up ground. Just throw that in, see if you're paying attention. Stan noticed my discomfort, and he ordered me some rum for it, which I sent down to my kidneys with a pagan, hopeful prayer. Then he laughed and said, all right, I don't think you're fit to fight. I'll walk you to the outhouse, arm in arm, it's only fair. Now the atmosphere on Perrin's world's enough to rot your teeth, so the scent inside the outhouse was a positive relief. They had 3 piss tubes in the wall so as not to slow the crew. I took the first one on the left, and Stan took the other 2. Stan Long, he was a man, he was a mighty fighting man, but fighting wasn't really his forte. He loved 100 girls on a dozen different worlds, and he loved them in a most peculiar way. He noticed I was staring and remarked of his bipartite gland, 2 heads are better than 1 is what the ancient sages say. But put yourself in my position, empathize with my condition. I'd rather have the love of 1 good woman any day. 1 good woman any day. Well, Stan and I, we roamed the stars, fighting wars and wrecking bars. For 20 good long years we blazed a rough and randy trail. And if police we underrated, we would sleep incarcerated. But like as not, 3 females would come by and make our bail. The ending of this story is a moral in a poor way, that 2 plus 2 can equal 1 or 4 or even 8. And if 1,000,000 women come through your life, you'll find the one just made for you. That's love, that's luck, or if you choose, that's fate. We was busting up this carnival on Io, and Stan spied a gal with lovely hair and eyes and cheeks, 4 legs and other charms. He went and asked the obvious, she answered yes, and that poor cuss just fell apart. He laughed, he cried, he swept her in his arms. They were married in December by a drunken priest named Captain Bligh, and settled down to work upon a yeast farm in Des Moines. Now, Iowa is kind of dull. You seen one yeast, you seen them all. So by August, the first pair of twins had sprang from out their loins. Rhymes with Des Moines. Much to his surprise, Stan found he liked the little guys, and round about July the next year, they came up with another pair. 2 more children came next May, and then Stanley, sad to say, had to get vasectomized. The law on Earth is stern but fair. Now every time I condescend to go to Earth, I see my friend up to his ass in diapers or putting girls and boys through school. Yeah, the girls all have 2 legs, the boys half that many pegs. Such unstable mutations never follow Mendel's rules. Now Stan still likes to fight and drink. But he doesn't do it much, I think, not just because the bars in Iowa close down at 9. He's got responsibilities, and even feels quite ill at ease when I regale his kids with tales about their father's time. Stan Long, he was a man, he was a mighty loving man, but he settled in a quiet country place. 7 bedrooms well appointed, and not mentioning Des Moines, it has a bathroom that's unique in all of space.